All right, hello everybody. This is Empty Turtle. We got a good one for you today here in Jubbtalk. I'm here with Dr. David Jubb, and Dr. David Jubb. Before we get into it, just say hello to our audience.
I just think it's just amazing everybody tuned in. Most distinguished audience of Empty Turtle, and just love it.
And you know what? They're getting in early. They're getting in early. All right, and today
because they can avoid the rush later.
That's right, a big crowd, so you can avoid the crowds.
That's the reason why they should be notified, because your stuff is pretty good.
Your stuff's good.
Well, yes, we.
All right, so check this out, and I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to talk about the unexplained, explained. And we're not going to tell you that, extraterrestrials exist, which they do. We're not going to talk about the formula for, light speed and answer, who got it. No. But we are going to explain things that haven't really been explained. I'll give you an example. Dr. Jubb, ask me where blood comes from.
Something is an alien. So I was just wondering, right?
Yeah.
First of all, because everything I would agree with, except for the moment which is relate to which is a very good topic itself, an alien. So what do you think an alien is?
Well, I said extraterrestrial.
Oh no, well yes, that's good. Extra. It means extra.
It's not
from the land here.
Yeah.
There's lots of extraterrestrial territory. What could some extraterrestrial territory be? Give me an example.
Mars. How about Mars?
How about here? Like space? Yes. What else?
What do you
Where
mean
else?
Here? We're not in space.
Well, you're not everywhere. That's extraterrestrial. That's
okay,
what that
let me
means.
ask you this: why are they called extraterrestrials when they're smaller than us? Wouldn't they be bigger than us if they were extraterrestrials?
Okay. So the question is, do you have a feeling that something that could be just a corpse itself, but run by people who are a corpse themselves, and could that be explained where something was off terrain, where your terrain is that's from the land where you are?
Well, an extraterrestrial
I'm asking you. I'm asking you just an honest to God literal question.
What?
Could you control the air space?
Can I?
Yes.
If I ran the government.
Okay, well, that's extraterrestrial, isn't it?
Sure.
Yes, because it's not got a central organized nervous system. Okay, that's another example.
Great
Give me
point.
another example.
No, great point. Now, the unexplained, explain. We weren't gonna, we weren't gonna tell
launch into that area.
Extraterrestrials.
Exactly.
Ask me where blood comes from.
Yeah. Well, first of all, could it come from an alien?
Ask me where blood comes from.
Yeah, but I'm asking you, see, a lot of these things we don't know about panspermia.
It comes from bone marrow, doesn't it?
Okay. Well, in 1925, there was a experiment that was done by Cunningham and Sabin. And, they looked inside chickens that were starved.
Chickens that were starved.
I mean, that's wrong, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, you shouldn't starve chickens.
I think science just do a lot of wrong things for the sake of humanity.
I know, yeah. Well, yeah, that's the experiment that they did, sort of based everything on. It's sort of unethical, you see. But do you think that if chickens were starved, could marrow turn into blood? That's the question.
I have no idea.
Yes, it can do.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So let's. What about if you were fasting, right? Which I recommend. Would blood come from fat?
Are you recommending that I fast or everybody fast?
I reckon that when something is uncommon wisdom and it comes to be known, it changes things. Exactly.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right. So, for instance, the question is what I asked you, do you have a feeling that blood could come from your fat?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So, but it does, all right. Because,
what?
How
blood
do you
comes from fat?
How do you get? What do you do? I mean, how's blood formed? You're talking about?
Yes. Come on.
No, but
You're the expert.
Yeah, well, Cunningham and Sabin saw that under the condition of a starving chicken, which is really unethical to do experiments on animals because there is no reason for that. It's just totally an illogical condition and thing to do.
Wow.
Right?
Sounds like it.
Well, to control some condition that you could see something and then you'd extrapolate that, and what they extrapolate from it is wrong. It's not wrong. It's got a half-truth.
Did they ever tell you why they starved the chicken?
The question that you just asked before, was how's blood formed, and we're going back through the rabbit hole. How did somebody come to think that blood, which is true, like what you said, science? It's a very good example of what's unknown. But I'm just explaining right now. If somebody looked like I have, if you're a hematologist or into hematopoiesis, which is the formation of blood, which I am.
I'm not.
So that's a good question. I've really investigated all the literature basically, but going over to Russia and Japan and other places, if you go and look into Secrets of an Alkaline Body that was written, you can see kind of like what the answer is to how blood is formed. But basically blood is formed from an aggregation, fusion and differentiation, which is a process of polymerization. It's got nothing to do with mitotic cell division, you see. So the question is well, first, if it was made in the marrow, I'm asking you, what happened to all the DNA?
Wow, that's really, that's a great question.
Okay.
I have no idea.
All right. So if a red blood corpuscle, does that have DNA or it doesn't have DNA?
I'm going to say it does.
Okay, it's a place that doesn't.
Ooh.
It's a question that actually you could ask a lot of doctors, and they kind of really don't know that question.
Really?
Right. I often in an audience in the past.
See my doctor next week.
Did you know? Look, it didn't matter where. Look, no, you'd be shut down. Why? Because you don't know. You see, isn't that good?
I think it's great.
Yes, it is. So listen, blood is formed from a process of aggregation and fusion of differentiation of colloid of life. So colloid of life I saw under the somatoscope, and these things, this is what the smallest building block of life is. And you're into a range of around 400 nanometer. It's that's huge.
Nanometers?
Well, what you could see visibly, but you could actually invent things so that you could have a smaller light wave to illuminate something small. But if you have a big light wave, you're trying to illuminate something. Can you see anything smaller?
Give me an example of how big a nanometer is.
Let's see. Well, what could we do? You could think and imagine that like an atom, in its size, like hydrogen, for instance. It's about 10 nanometer.
10 nanometers, the size of a hydrogen.
Well, you've got particles that drop off after hydrogen. Okay. You've got go down to a JC quanta, which is 10 to the minus 71, centimeters per square cube.
Can we measure the sizes of tachyons and whatever those other things are?
Magnetons,
can we measure those?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And these things are tiny.
Well, like I just told you, you're going to go down to 10 to the minus 71 centimeters per square cube.
Oh, you just said that? Because I have no idea what that means.
It means you've gone down below hydrogen.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, like how far? A quadrillion units down below it.
I want to use that number for a T-shirt.
A quadrillion units. So,
quadrillion units?
Well, yeah. So, okay. So, I'm going to ask you a question how slow is light, basically?
How slow is light?
When you see it. Yeah, when you see it.
Because everybody thinks it's fast, right?
No, it's very slow.
Okay, hold on. Light is slow.
Of course, it's slow. It's like as slow as a snail, crossing the footpath. It's just, you're not going to go anywhere with that. Sorry. No, did you know that information processing is faster than the speed of light?
No,
yeah,
I have no idea.
Well, I'm only going to ask you, do you have a feeling that everything just dropped off after hydrogen?
It feels like that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Okay.
Really?
What about absolute zero? Is that something that in your mind you think exists?
I think absolute zero means zero, nothing.
Yeah, but what's that? You see, because people had a concept of that. Do you know when that formed? Well, it didn't really form. It was sort of an idea that started to get expressed again. But it already had been squashed on the head a long time ago because zero was only just a holder. It wasn't a number.
Okay, so where is absolute zero?
Well, when you count, you'd count from starting from to get to 1, and so you'd have to have 0 in the set to get to 1. So if you go from 0, you go and your fingers from your thumb, and you count around, you're going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And you've got to your little finger, and now you've come over to your other hand.
Yeah.
And you've gone 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
What?
And that is a set. Now, no, hold on. I'm going to just ask you a question.
Okay.
Multiplication is multiplying, isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, it is. So 1 and 1 equals 1 plus 1.
2.
Okay. 1 times 1.
1.
No, it doesn't.
Come on. Yes,
No,
it does.
you've been fooled. I'm sorry.
Here we go.
You see, so let's just think about it for a second. Like, could 0 exist? I'm asking you.
Maybe that's why we haven't figured out the speed of light, is because it does exist.
I'm just thinking that if your mind just had dropped off about some idea that you came up with, you wouldn't be able to consider what maybe happened after that or before it. But you would and should, because why? Well, that's the unexplained, like you asked about.
There we go.
But anyway, I mean, a good question I would want to ask you another topic.
Real quick, though, tell them where blood comes from.
Oh, blood, I just said it comes from, aggregation, fusion, and differentiation, and your cells can reverse differentiate back into a red blood corpuscle. And a red blood corpuscle isn't a cell because it's a what?
DNA?
It's called a corpuscle. Okay, so
yeah,
it's not a cell. It's not a cell.
Well, only you would know that.
Okay, well, everybody should know that.
Okay,
but
well,
most
they
of
do
us
now.
Don't. Yeah.
They do
So
now.
when a piece of rust breaks down, what does it break down to?
Dust.
Bacteria, okay.
Right,
What about
rust.
the tar? The tar on the road, what does that break down to? Life colloid. Okay, the same
Really?
bacteria, yeah.
Wow.
What about oil? What does that break down into?
Oil?
Yeah.
Water.
Life colloid, okay. It's got life colloid full of it in it. Yeah. Does some life colloid only reproduce at about 600 degrees? It's like really hot,
I think
boiling
so,
like crazy.
Maybe.
Yes, they do. That's right. What are these called? These are called extremophile. Yeah.
Extreme who?
Extremophile life colloid. Yes.
Extremophile.
Okay. So if it's a heavy rock, what does that break down into as the life colloid? It's called a
dust. A heavy rock?
pseudophile. Yes.
I've
okay.
never even heard of that word.
Now, when light rock breaks down into life colloid, what does it break down into?
Lithophile?
Lithophile.
Lithophile.
Yes, okay.
That was a total guess.
Okay. That's very good because it's a lithosphere and things go on there. Could petrification occur in an instant?
Absolutely.
Yes, it does, because you can understand plasma if you listen to our shows more. But let's on another topic a little bit. But basically, like you've got a laminar large cell propria within the submucosa of your lung and your intestine, and this is where aggregation, fusion, and differentiation of colloid comes along, and they form into a red blood corpuscle. You see, and there's 1,500 of them, like in a double spore size, broadside across each other, and the red blood corpuscle is made up out of double spore, you see, yes? And so that double spore is a building block that makes up every other tissue in your body.
Double
and so there's
spore.
2 organisms that your body's composed of, and what's that? Mucorracemiosis and Streptococcus niger. Okay.
I've never heard of those
so
before in my life.
one will make what? Vascular structure, and the other one what makes? Striated material and connective tissue. Okay, so is this exactly what the body's made of? Yes. So when you look down at a cell, can you see it looks like Mexico City?
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, and what's the color change just lately?
Red, the lights, right? Red light, green light, blue light.
No, it's actually the cars. Sorry, from satellite we're talking about.
Of course.
What's the color
That's
showing
what I
up
meant,
now? What's the color? Quick.
Yellow.
The change. No, it used to be.
Red.
It's gone to what?
Blue.
No, it's gone military color, sort of, because they've got somebody else driving there now, not the medallions. Okay, so what was the color of New York City some time ago?
Yellow.
Yeah, and what is it now?
Whatever.
Military color. Okay, from space. We're just thinking about that. That's all.
From space.
But would I just ask you a question about things? Do you have a feeling that if a monopoly existed? Would that? What do you think? Would there be some bad things?
Well, things would be limited as far as ingenuity and
Yes, of course. Yes.
ideas, all that good
We
stuff.
wouldn't even have to get into it because it's just dangerous, wouldn't it be? Yes, monopolization. Did anybody ever warn all of us about monopolization?
I believe it was Julius Caesar. Who was it?
Well, you too, Judith, and all this sort of a thing.
Oh, Judith. Wait a minute. You too warned us?
Well, you too meant
warned us about monopolization.
That Caesar realised that there were people around him that were all part of a club that would do a blue on green.
Oh no! And what does that do? Turn yellow.
Well, somebody has to have accepted that, but that's immoral, isn't it?
I think it's
if you were in a fraternity, like you point out, and you were fraternized, right, with homosexuals, and you only had to look after a garrison, like you point out, like Caesar did, and he really worked for a really wealthy cat, and that wealthy cat was a slave whore, the biggest in the world, matter of fact, huge. Why? Well, because it's doing immoral things. Why? Because 1 in every 3 persons was free back then, where he was. So that was bad.
Damn.
And before that, it was 1 in every 5 people was free under Darius, before Alexander sacked that picture.
Wow. There's another unexplained explained.
Yeah, but well, anyway, so basically, monopolies are really not so good, are they? But anyway, what if, when you're looking at things from far away, you could see that there could be a charge for genocide? And do you have a feeling that you've ever read books and things that relate to how a genocide occurred and who was involved, where that was, and how it happened?
Well, I've heard of them.
Yeah, because so many. Well, have you heard about the Romanian genocide?
No, really. I mean, I've heard. Bits and pieces.
So the Romanian genocide is just like a lot, isn't it? What about the Cambodian genocide?
Oh, come on, Pal Pot, yeah, of course.
Okay, but you could have heard that, but recent. But most people could have not really sort of learned about that. Why not?
Busy. People are distracted and busy.
Is it okay to make a mistake?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Yes, because it's not good to repeat it, right?
No, it's not good to repeat mistakes. No.
No, because that's an error.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So
unless the
that's
reward
so nice.
is larger than the reward if you get it right.
Okay. Well, is this the reason why children just love you?
Yes. People love me. Not just children, everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. Okay. And you know what? I'm very humble. I just hate showing it. Okay. I really do.
But now, how come all the birds are always around you, dogs barking and things? I mean, you've got a lot of animals around you, and I see birds all the time just flying around trying to get close.
Just, they feel the freedom, the love. They feel like they don't have to be watching.
If a butterfly would land on someone, do you think there could be some good energy there?
I think people think it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, because they really don't eat much, do they? They sort of really travel around.
Butterflies are cool.
Okay.
Are they mean? Because that would be an unexplained thing. Because
genocides all have gone on. Would you agree?
I mean, I'd like to know.
Well, genocides first have gone on, haven't they?
I believe so, yeah. Absolutely.
Could it be just on so many levels, matter of fact, that something is just a conformity? That doesn't sound right, does it? I mean, if you had a conformer cup of tea.
Well, they're telling you. Right?
About your cup of tea.
They're telling you, cup of tea better get in line.
Conning to form. It's kind of, I wonder about that. But you could, about quality, but don't you think actually just leave it alone and actually people can really feel that out themselves?
I think that's what they hope for.
Yes, but we should all be thinking about that rather than saying somebody should conform.
That's what they are hoping for.
What about
drink your tea and get in line?
Something is about uniformitarianism.
Yeah, that's a problem because I'm not a uniform person. I'm more of a slacks, shorts.
Well, an ism could that be an evil thing? An ism.
It is an evil thing.
Yeah, because that's extraterrestrial, right?
Oh, here we go. The extra.
No, it's extraterrestrial. It means it's not on the land.
Really?
Right.
So racism.
No, you're talking about certain things which we must talk about because there's something extraterrestrial, as you point out, which is a corporation. If you have a corporation above you and you didn't know it, that would be extraterrestrial, wouldn't it?
We all have
Yes,
a
it is.
corporation
It
above
is.
us.
No, well, we don't. No, you don't. You're not latched. That's wrong. We need to talk a bit about that. Look, if a great uniformity was, how could there be just 1 inch of sediment every 10,000 years?
I'm going to say it's a pattern that Mother Nature sticks to.
But if small changes over eons of time was false, actually, because that's what's true. Of course, it's a backwards story. Is that those layers were just made in an instant?
No, they boil, right? They come to a boil.
Oh, we're talking about layers. One. We just said that if an asteroid hit, tsunamis would make a lot of layers in an instant versus that didn't happen.
Well, I mean, if it happens, how can you not see it, right?
Well, if you were not taught in a certain way and you thought your education came from a certain place ethnocentrically, which would be maybe not right, but because, like, for instance, in English, right, if you go to the universities there and you look at the mindset, yes, what happened when asteroid comes onto the books for us?
Well, I get excited.
Yeah, it's okay, but it came onto the books only recent time in the 1800s. What about the word dinosaur?
Oh, everybody loves dinosaurs.
Yeah, but that's just a new word.
What?
Yeah, you see. Right. We had to come up with a word, and it was dinosaur, okay, but people had words to describe these in past.
Give me one.
Well, a word was described of a Tyrannosaurus and dinosaurs in the past, and they had their name for these things. One was a name that was the same words they used for a huge, thick cedar tree, which could be like 30 foot thick. So that was the tail of this animal.
Wow.
You see, and that's true. I mean, you've got really small.
Thunderbird? Remember Thunderbird?
But if we could just think to a condition that happens. What if I said to you 66 million years ago, what happens to you?
I go back and I think about cave people.
Yeah, okay, but is it bothersome that it's like a long time ago, and how do you get there?
I'll tell you what, a lot has happened since then, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but like, what would we know that if it was based on dating of rock, which is totally up the park, fully? No, but we didn't know that because... Well, it hasn't been told to anybody that the actual dating of the rocks, excuse me, if you look, the dating of the rocks were through, radiometric, decay
I can just
is
look at
wrong.
A rock and date it.
It's totally wrong.
It's
I know.
old.
Yeah, but that's what people could think, but it's not so, you see, because what would happen if a tree became a rock and all the rocks that you see there came from trees?
Oh, my gosh. That I never thought of.
Well, that's there's plenty of examples of that. But anyway, look, if small changes like people have been taught, like that is the great conformity, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to conform. I mean, it means that you've got to unconform if you say something else. And this is a straw man argument itself, isn't it? Yeah?
Yes.
So then you could ask everybody, how about the unconformity?
Wow. Yeah, now we're
No, well, you have to conclude everything.
Yeah.
Because don't you think that that's something that could happen? Disaster could strike, because it did, didn't it?
And it will again.
Yeah, well, anyway. But one thing is, for small changes over eons of time, is a false, true backwardness, isn't it? Because natural processes absolutely didn't include a lot of these things which you would talk about in a small Earth. But if we behaved in the same way today as we did yesterday and everything was the same, how come all the cornerstones of all the buildings was changed just in one moment? Because some asymmetric warfare would be because, like, I just want to remove your ID from you, so that you won't have identification, basically, you see. Or how would you know anything if I just said, hey, I want to know your maiden name and I'm only giving you a form of a change of your address, which first, of course, a nativity existed, not a birth. And also, too, how come it's got an address. I mean, an address is property of the bank. I mean, words and things that you and I, we all use.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back before you even know it. Okay, we're back, folks. See, you didn't even know we were gone. We were gone like a long time. But you know what? Can't even tell. Dr. Job, today, of course, we're talking about the unexplained explained. What else can you explain to us that's not explained?
So many things you could, because there's the great conformity at the moment. See? And it means that you're not to be able to bring anything up, that kind of didn't happen yesterday or tomorrow sort of thing, see, because it's common to us to perhaps have an idea that it's just like, normal that these things didn't happen sort of thing, the idea of like an asteroid, that's what I'm talking about.
Now, it's obvious in archaeology, something is definitely being covered up. Is that a part of the great conformity?
Well, you have to conform because, like Galileo, what happened to Galileo? And I think quite a few people, could you look into it? Like, what about Aristotle and Plato?
Well, Plato started a thing for kids, a bunch of clay.
No, I was just wondering what happened ending up to them.
Oh,
see,
a lot, right?
No, but do we know what happened at the ending up to them, sort of thing?
A lot of people know, but do our listeners know?
Yeah. Well, anyway, of course, I imagine that it's something that you kind of would have not been able to talk about. You see, sure. Asteroids and comets, that would be not allowed.
Why wouldn't that be allowed? I mean, we saw them in the night skies for decades.
Well, people could have already a story that, like I said, that if it didn't happen yesterday, or the day, it was not going to happen tomorrow. It's kind of, this is a bit strange so that doesn't fit into the picture. Could you imagine that's going on a bit? Especially if you were like a monopoly anyway.
I see what you're saying. They're painting a picture for us.
Well,
and if it doesn't,
they didn't hold on to the.
Doesn't fit in the picture.
It's kind of not right because authority, the leadership is the control of information.
Is there anything that you can tell us that's not explained with those crazy murals at the Denver airport?
Oh, the murals and things is luminism, you see. So it's very, spiritual. That where someone has a monopoly, they could have a way to have a belief system technology to be able to reduce cortisol, see. Because it could be that, these people don't have an internally regulated system, right? And their money system's being used, and that's wrong.
Are you saying that those murals were painted to create cortisol?
Oh, I'm only just saying that who painted the picture? Like, for instance, if you look at the Sumerian scroll, you've got to ask yourself, who paid for it? That's all. And I mean, that was a very wealthy man, and he had a reason with a story behind the Sumerian scroll that somebody found. But why wouldn't you want to, as a scientist, know exactly, of course, who scribed it and who paid for that? And now you would look into the story and you'd find if there was a motive existed in the story as to be the reason why that story existed. But wouldn't you think that actually it was a magician of the time past that they would actually cause people to have sort of shows, and then by shows they would introduce ideas which they could then precognitively tell you subliminally and behind the scene how you're going to interpret information that comes along.
Okay, note to self. When I invent the time travel machine, go back, find out who paid for that Sumerian scroll. Okay? And then...
Well, that's all been done. It's just really only that you could say that in the story you can see the motive would be behind superior, inferior. It's just, you can't stand that, which I know. I think most people can't. They don't like that.
People with money always trying to get one over.
How could they help themselves? Perhaps, you see, didn't in the scrolls that was left a little bit? Someone say that someone that was rich, they wouldn't have been able to poop through the eye of a needle.
I can.
Well, is it true that something comes into the temple and it's influencing what comes out of it?
You got that right.
Yeah. Well, somebody could have been said of old, but somebody could say of new, you see. So today, for instance, like if I asked you if you were Muhammad in a time past, and I said, do you know about plastic?
Well, it just seems there's a lot of polymers.
Plastic.
There's a lot of polymers.
Yeah, there's a lot of
body,
plastic.
right?
Well, there's a lot of plastics.
Can you have plastic without polymer?
Yeah, no, it actually goes through polymerization, like we talked about a bit about aggregation, fusion, and differentiation of blood.
So we need plastic.
I don't know if we covered that.
Do we need plastic in our body?
No, that's a substance. It's really tough to break down because it doesn't want to. It's bacteria that's in there want to break down too much, but it's in a ceremonial state, meaning it's sort of crystallized. It's gone into a sort of a crystal state, sort of basically. But with organic material, you see, that's what.
I knew a girl named Crystal State. It was weird, but it was cool.
Yeah. So with incendiaries that we have today, you know, they've got nuclear weapons and things, and they shifted the clock 90 seconds before doom. Mm-hmm. What could you think some of those real issues might be that just caused the clock to be shifted so close to doom, 90 seconds at the moment?
Well, here's the deal, because we are 90 seconds away. Right now, you have threats of nuclear war being said by the top people in these governments that have got issues, and you know what? One of these days, we're not taking them serious, I think, is what's happening. And one of these days, they are gonna, do something stupid. Or we're just being played.
Anyway,
we're just being played.
Well, we could imagine for a moment, because somebody, if you look at disaster, you could become very good at understanding how to survive it. But if you weren't good at looking at disaster and seeing actually how you could survive, you'd be, that wouldn't be right. Like, so for instance, if you knew a colour could help you or something like that, would you have that colour? Yes, of course you would.
It depends on the colour.
Well, no, really not. But I mean, yeah. Because, everybody could say, please, let's make sure we have this colour. It's like that.
What
somebody
if that
goes,
colour can help you?
I'm going to have
can help you,
orange.
But you don't look good in it,
Well, orange might have escaped, you see, where blue didn't.
Don't look good.
Blue didn't. Blue was,
Trump looked good in orange.
Blue survived, in the person who kind of behind all of what that would be. But anyway, look. What about the ultrasonic longitudinal sort of transverse waves that are the shock wave itself?
Well, they can be very dangerous, right?
Well, if you think about an asteroid, like an example, let's say, an asteroid and it smacks in, and now you've got an initial shock wave, and that initial shock wave, it shreds life. You see.
Really?
Yeah,
Another
if you're within the
unexplained
condition of it, of course. But it's it's like sonic waves, and you've got ultrasonic and supersonic, meaning faster than sound.
Yeah.
And so you've got earth and air and all sorts of things moving in that shock wave, and that can hit you. And I mean, it shreds. It doesn't knock you back. It's too fast.
What's the fastest ultrasonic wave we've ever recorded?
Ultrasonic, meaning sounds which are below audibleness. It means just that it's below our ear, of course. Oh wow. There's goes on. In fact, it's just a matter that where our sound is, for instance, what you and I can hear is only a certain range of things within a range.
Okay.
And we've got 10,000 tonal ranges which we can distinguish, basically. But let's see. Like if you were a spider, for instance, like a camel spider, you could see the relief on the moon.
No way. They can see that good?
Well, you can see definitely craters and very clearly.
Well, I can do that now. I don't need to be a camel spider.
I know, but you'd have to have compact sort of lenses and things which all allowed you to do that, which you can technology-wise. But I mean, let's see. No, they can see that straight up.
Okay, I'm a camel spider. What's my motivation?
they would absolutely be able to detect motion and movement and have such capacity, matter of fact, even in the light, dark or whatever, to be able to see anything around them and always have an awareness about this, where most of us, we're asleep, we don't have the same kind of awareness they would. Okay. You see what I mean? Right. Because they have something like, well, what about a snake that's curled and it all of a sudden has a coil and it can detect like even far infrared sensing and things, because it starts to just be able to sense heat.
The coil, was that inspired by a snake?
Coils, you can see that many things like pine cone, as you point out, or a seashell, and every single thing like has a Fibonacci conditioning to itself, but the ultrasonic, this sound wave that would shred everybody, I mean, if it was a long range comet, right?
Yeah.
Would that be faster than something that was more short range?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Trick you now, but hold on. Because that's smart. Yeah. Okay, that's smart. So could it be 55,000 miles a second, like something that was long range?
It could go that fast.
And then maybe a slow one might only be
pressure wave. Is that the same thing?
15 miles per second.
Is the sound wave and a pressure wave the same thing?
No, I'm just talking about the traveling of it when it hits the Earth.
Damn, that's fast.
No, we're talking about that because that's just what would happen. But basically, really, you've really got huge peaks of water that would happen if it hit the ocean.
Is the pressure wave the same as the sound
wave? Would they go up like in miles? Like, would they go up like, how many do you think?
I don't know, hundreds of thousands of
miles. 3 or 4 miles or more. A wave.
I was just kidding.
Yeah, at the peak, where it comes back in, where if it landed in the water, and now when that goes out, that's like serious because it actually is pretty big.
Cataclysm.
Well, it's a pretty big wave.
Cataclysm.
Okay. But something is a pressure wave too, like we talked about, and that's pretty severe where things would happen where that is. But it'd leave a big, huge vacuum, and then air rushed and water would rush back in and then upward, and it ejects stuff when that happens. And it reaches a velocity that just exits the Earth. So, for instance, like the Chicxulub Club that smacked into the Yucatan above Venezuela there.
Okay.
How big a piece do you think could be? Like, I mean, chunks that would have been ejected?
I'm sure bus size, at least.
Like
as big a chunks as it can possibly.
Well, you can imagine. Could you imagine 33 yards or meters of something?
That's pretty big.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and could you imagine that a lot could survive within that?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, because it's sort of insulated.
Microscopically.
Yeah, but it's been ejected now.
An elephant would.
When that happened, like, let's just say that it was 66, which it wasn't a million years ago, but just go ahead and do that anyway. How far away would it be if it was 66 million years ago today?
That's pretty far.
Okay, yes, it would be on the other side of the galaxy. That's pretty good.
I'd say so, at least.
Yeah, of course.
But
there's something when it's kicked off, does it speed up in space?
I think it speeds up as it gets closer to its target.
No, it can speed up because what's stopping it? It's like slipping through space. It's not hitting anything.
And maybe those asteroids, some alien kids, target practice with their BB laser gun or whatever. And that's what we're getting with the asteroids. Maybe? No?
Oh, well, one thing first, of course,
like, is there a movie in that?
Well, when the last time that happened, like you're talking about, it's important that you'd have tracking and things, ability like that. But in 1903, when the Tuscany blew, right, it was an atmospheric, and how big was that?
Tuskegee. Right?
Yeah. How big was it?
It was pretty big, right?
Well, how big though?
I'm gonna say 90 miles.
Yeah, it was about the size of an Eiffel Tower. What happened on the same day, more or less? Do you know?
It actually.
That one exploded atmospheric, but
yes, it did.
There was another one too, the same size.
No way.
And did
in one day?
Well, I'm just letting you know there was another one also, and that actually hit the ground.
Wow! So there was two.
Well, you see now, the thing is that how good is our tracking that people could have not known about the one that did come, and then they didn't know about the one that didn't, or apparently. Do you know what I mean?
Covered it up.
Okay, but look, I'm only just saying where people just start to learn about asteroids if they got a little bit of time to think about it. It's only just Haley that brought it, into the books for university in England.
There you go. See. So my theory's right.
Well, some people knew about it a long time ago because the ancient Kush, did they build the pyramid with the same dimensions and things like of the distance, for instance, from Teotihuacan, in Mesoamerica, where the Sun Pyramid is, and it's the exact distance, the one where they built then on Giza from that,
there's no question,
and it's the same distance as from that to the Sun.
Dimensions.
Okay, so somehow they must have known that beforehand because they built one, then they built the other. But it comes about more from actually how, when you look at Gene, you can see actually flow things and stuff going on, which really could explain a lot more than what most people actually have looked at as far as what the past is concerned. But it's supersonic bombardment. It really happens, and you've got plasma bolts. Do you know what those things are?
That is melted rock.
It absolutely is plasma come out of the Earth, and honest to God, it can shape and terraform the Earth like crazy, which you could see that in lots of places, in fact.
In Hawaii?
Well, you could see a whole range of things which are absolute craters, and they're being formed as a result of this a little more. You see massive, plasma bolts. Okay, but anyway, you've got water falling, as a result of the asteroid, right, or the comet, and the water, if it fell in the north, does the water fall on the north?
It seems like it fell everywhere. Huh?
Yeah, it falls on the north, all of it. How many miles fell? Oh, 2 miles of it? Wow, that's a lot. Did it cover a hell of a lot of area? Yes, it did.
And that's,
okay.
You know what? That could explain why you have whale skeletons in Sahara or Egypt or Saudi Arabia.
Well, you had a river back then anyway, but it's a sea, an inland sea that went east-west. Okay, but initial shock waves, first we kind of said, really, shreds life and things if you were in the, but we're here and it's evidence that it could be possible to survive. Was there a bottleneck in our own species that happened? When was that?
I want to say no, but
yes, there was. You told me that there was. 75,000 years ago, pretty much. Okay, what happened 75,000 years ago? Do you know?
Don't know why it's bottleneck. I know why. How many years did you say?
75,000 years ago.
There was a bottleneck because of a calamity. Right?
I think that might have been Shiva. Perhaps.
Oh, really?
Well, it's east-west because there it is, and could that have been north-south somewhat? Makes sense, and it just turned the Earth so much, it sort of gave it a new equator fully, and it only took a short time to do that. But if you look at the sorts of initial shock waves and shredding things and supersonic sort of bombardment and this sort of thing, you've got these plasma bolts that come out of the Earth. And so, for instance, like the Deacon traps and things, and the traps that come out in Siberia, the Siberian traps, which are all this plasma that flowed for 100,000 years. But the things that people have as far as dates and stuff is a bit wrong, or really bad, but you could see that the modeledness of how much magma spewed out and this sort of a thing, and how much, honest to God, it can have taken a long time to cover, for instance, a lot of that Siberian piece, which also in India, it's like about a third of the whole of India. It sort of cut it in half a bit. But you've got these supersonic bombardments that occurred, of course, and some burned everything. And so, for instance, the last big burn that we had was 12,500 BC or something. Around then. Well, no, I don't know about that. I think that you're going back to 75,000 years ago. So we've had various things that Money's just pointing out, and I'm just also, like you said, should we not be able to track these things? That's certain, but could attention to be more where attention should be, wise it is. For instance, if we knew that changes that go on is a cyclical and not necessarily constant, not at all, because it's variable, the space that we travel through, you see, and so falling behind the sun, various things are going on, and like we're just vortexing behind the sun as it's falling in front of us, falling through space, heading into the zone of avoidance and things. But if it's traveling so very fast, and we just put a speed to that, which is radical actually, per second, and now the Earth gets knocked, what happens?
Chaos.
Yes, because like when you're on a ship and it's just moving at the speed of light or something, I mean, just imagine that, and somebody all of a sudden knocked you, wouldn't you imagine that plasma bolts and all sorts of things would get set loose from more the mantle that slips around a bit in a moment of those things going on until it settles? You've got a magma riding on, and a continent riding on magma hot, and two different zones sort of that have different speeds to themselves. These all things that sort of have to catch up to each other. In the moment of it all, it's quite chaotic when that happens, and then the turmoil could go on for some time. But like 12,500 years ago, you could say definite, probable. It was Greenland, one that hit, and some of it sort of smacked over the Hudson too, and it knocked the Earth over 15 degrees. So that would be the last time that an equator existed, where the old equator was. Where did the old equator go? Do you know?
Where was it?
Well, it was in the Pyramid of Giza. Was at the equator, and what else was at the equator? If you went east, you'd go out to Angkor Wat.
Angkor Wat.
Yes, that's a temple that's been found.
Yeah,
right.
That,
okay,
yeah.
And then you'd go out further to Unigumi Island. Yes, and then you'd go all the way through to Easter Island. Okay. Yes, and then you go from Easter Island. You always would go to Machu Picchu in Peru.
All those were on the equator.
Yeah, at sea level. And now, hold on, then you'd run across to the Canary Islands. Yes, that's right. And then where else would you run? You'd run back to Egypt. Okay, so that was the old equator. And where would you find that? In the Nazca, lines that they left, huge down there. Yeah, you do. It all lines up with that. But anyway, look, if you knew that, you could find a lot of things, because everything was done according to a distance, you see. And there where you could find things, it always in relation to the sun and the earth, the moon and the earth, and the relation of things that was to do with the heavens. And they copied those things into the Pyramid of Giza, for instance, and other places. Okay. But, what would be left, I'm going to ask you, if an asteroid hit, okay.
I'm ready.
And, of New York, and Los Angeles, everybody. Well, what would be left? Anything in America?
Yes, are ruins.
I don't think so. I think you would see, of course, Mount Rushmore, basically. Okay, but you wouldn't find anything else. Okay, I'm going to ask a question. If you could see a painting done in a cave, right, and you see the painting done in the cave, and red ochre is blown against the hand, and then white chalk calcium is blown against the hand, and it makes these marks on the cave. Then they make charcoal, they blow it against the hand, and it makes really nice patterns of hands and things. It looks very nice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And a Rolls Royce is parked 99 miles away, and that happening in Darwin today, right? What would be left in 2,000 years? I'm going to ask you.
In 2,000 years?
Yeah. The cave painting or the Rolls Royce?
Well, the cave painting.
Okay, but the Rolls Royce was there too.
Well, yeah, but
it happened at the same time.
get buried.
Yeah, but like in a story, I'm just asking you, could you consider the possibility that something would be just gone, nothing left of it?
Yes.
Like the Rolls Royce.
Yes.
Okay, but a Rolls Royce is built to last, right?
Yes.
Well, is there another car that's more built to last?
Another car? Hold on. Hold on.
That's not meant to last.
Silverado.
Okay, Rolls Royce.
Okay, Rolls Royce.
Yeah, Rolls Royce are meant to last, all right. Why is a Rolls Royce meant to last? I mean, because they got several Duco coats and all this sort of thing.
You pay for what you get.
Okay. I'm glad you're not such a capitalist. But anyway, look, if a crater was really huge, a vacuum was left behind, water jumped in there, and it rushed up to a jet, and then that sort of came down to a sort of a tidal wave, and that came through, could you see how that went over Everest?
Really?
Mount Everest?
How could it?
Of course it did.
You had to.
No, well, you got to think of a wave that big because it's a little bit silly if you didn't. Because why? Because you've got huge chevrons left behind. They're shapes of sand. And how do those chevrons get formed?
From the water, the wave stopping.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, so if it was 5 stories high, and they were in ripples like this, what could you imagine actually could have caused that? It's really like about 1,000 mile an hour, honest to God, wave, and it's at least a mile high. To deposit that amount of sand when a wave stopped to make those ripples and things that formed there, you see.
I think that wave would scare even the most experienced surfer ever.
Yeah. If you were far enough away, which obviously your species was, because your species survived this.
That's right, I could see it from space.
I mean, so Earth slipped 15 degrees, and it kicked off a younger, drier era, like what you're talking about. And it was a 60-mile thick shell, which hit the poles, you see. And that's pretty big, moving the equator. It sort of moved the equator over, and it swung back and forward and toppled a bit like the Earth did in the spiraling. But during the time of it, of course, we've just said it causes 1,000 miles an hour wind, and it is because we're naturally just ripping along through space, and all of a sudden we're just thumped. But space is called frame dragged along with you, and because what's frame dragged along with you, you can't kind of really feel, but the moment that frame dragging stops, you could start to feel the effect of something which was being frame dragged in physics. But these are things which, if you're into astronomy, kind of really are things that you explore, like getting an equation for a black hole or something, and you can come up with the mass of it. But you can't have too many conversations with anybody about that.
For one, to describe a black hole, I don't need math. I just need 2 words. Really big hole.
Do you think that if it were true, something goes on like that, what would be, like something could fall into the range of making a kind of a pretty big asteroid, comet like whack in the future?
Wow. Well, what could?
Yeah, I mean, if you're tracking these things, you're very,
well, Halley's
scientific.
Comet could do it, right?
Oh, well, yes, it could. That's right. Because
how about
it's got a returning. It returns, doesn't it?
How about an unknown planet with an unknown orbit?
What about Apophis?
Who?
Apophis.
What's that?
Apophis? That's the one.
Sounds like
Apophis is really an asteroid the size of the Eiffel Tower. It's kind of like, well,
that's big.
Well, there were 2 of them, and they hit, but you can see the damage that one did, sort of atmospheric and things, and kind of another one exploded too, which you could look into and see what happened there. But you've got beloved in science, sort of long lost past, of course, and the heavens opened up, in succession. And variation, it impacted and caused water to dry up suddenly and things that's like this. But a butterfly effect could happen in an orbit, it knocks one of these a little more toward a collision with the Earth. So, what's the closest one that's going to come to be, coming up sort of thing, because wouldn't it be wise that you kind of knew about that? I don't know.
I got a question for you before I forget. Now, when the Earth gets knocked off its poles, right? Does it accept where it stays, or does it try to get back to where it was?
If it overcomes inertia, like you've got a center of a gravitational point that's within a base of itself. In physics, you could see and absolutely calculate the force more or less different, because like in the computing of it, you can see that depending on the angle of the trajectory and actually the composition of what came in, you're looking at, and then where did that impact, and is it atmospheric, is it land, or is it ocean, and things. And now you can look and see where did it hit, because now you can look and see how much land mass is there. If there's a lot of land mass, it's going to go, a lot of water is going to be piled up on that land mass, and so it's going to rain down for a long while, and ice will be there, and it's going to cause a tilt or tottering, and this might take 6-7 days or so, and between the moment of it, it can be really wobbling around, which absolutely has been shown in the magnetic anomalies in rock and basalt and things that when it was flowing.
It makes sense now. It makes sense. See, the skies opened up, and then there was that was a fucking, I'm sorry, bad word, an effing.
Well, for king was really,
Four Kings, that's right.
Called a swear word. So that for king, that was called for king.
Okay.
I know.
For king. Okay.
Well, a little difference between and it's
thanks for saving me on that one.
No, for king is really.
We're gonna have to.
But it means man, because under the Magna Carta it just means king? Common. We the people. It means we the people. Or words like that, yeah. We're the people. It means we're the people.
So we're saying
Bennu is another one that Bennu 29075. It's called. You see, and then you've got also 23TL4, which of these are named at a certain time and things like this. But you've got closer sort of chance of those sort of hitting the Earth, and you've got one sort of in kind of really, you could say, 2182. And that really is something which could, because small variables are going on. You see,
I got something for you.
Yeah,
is the Big Bang Theory real? Is the Big Bang Theory how we got created?
No, it's quite stupid. No, it's quite stupid. Well, it's like a 66 million year old. Yeah, that's right. It's like, God help us. No, that's
so the
so
Big Bang
wrong.
Theory is wrong?
Well, it's wrong because it's going to cause somebody to have a transderivational search for information, because it's like a Big Bang. It's like, does that explain how transmutation occurs? No, it does, but it doesn't, you see, because it doesn't mean that something doesn't go on where that something is like that somewhat, but it doesn't explain that nothing existed, suddenly all of a sudden something did, and this sort of thing, where everything is not on the scale. It's sort of like more multiple cause, not singularly caused like this. So it ends up like causing people to think something is singularly caused, which that would be just so wrong as far as most things are concerned. Because if you said, this caused gold, well, I do know that life colloids create gold and transmutate things, one thing from another, and that when you go into the earth, you can go several miles down and you're still going to go and find life colloid, right?
And guess what? Another unexplained thing, just explained.
So you've really got things that's going on, and you've got the transmutation via magneton isotonic pressure changes, which change the magnetic domain, various sort of things. But it's possible that explosion and things like that, in implosion, most people can't be aware that actually implosion is a far greater conditioning that goes on, because you've created a vacuum. And it's a monster, because it's a different type of explosion, you see.
Well, where's that going to happen? Not on Earth, right? We're not going to
you've got
implode.
When you go into down to an atom, or you go down to a JC quanta, you've got a long way to go down there from hydrogen. Really you go a way down there.
How long was that journey take? A week? 2 weeks?
Hydrogen might be, like I said, 10 nanometers wide itself.
That's pretty big, right?
Yeah, so you've got to see like at least 4 of them to be able to see a colour.
What color would this hydrogen
with
look like?
various microscopes, if you don't have a microscope that's going to illuminate something smaller, which you can magnetically, you see. But,
it's good to know.
Well, you'd have to have a light that could illuminate things smaller. And actually, I've invented various things that actually uses the light of the object itself.
Oh, wow.
So you see everything. You see everything.
Yeah.
Did
you learn that from a deep trench
paramagnetic energy? It was interesting for me to just experiment and to make film, and suddenly I saw three-dimensionally into atoms.
From jellyfish?
I learned that there were different types of magnetics, and one was diamagnetic, and that was something I looked into to sort of have to look through a diamagnetic lens, and then I could see very fine, unbelievable magnicity, and I could see through things and around the back of them, you see, as in what something was being looked at. So you could see the light that came from the object that you were looking at itself. And so these are more sophisticated sort of forms of microscopic sort of work and stuff. But basically, really, you've got the Egyptians there, and you've got the Peiresis map, which shows the North Pole in Sudan Basin at the time, and you've got deposit layers and things. And now these maps really do make sense, these ancient maps, and they're very accurate, matter of fact, for the time they were made. But you couldn't understand it back then because you wouldn't know what had blown out anew, because it was the new equator, and what subducted where the old equator was. And as we point out in one program, it's like 13 miles out into the sky in some places of the Earth than others, you see. So, for instance, what's the furthest out mountain on the Earth?
Furthest out?
Yeah.
I don't know, Mauna Loa.
It's in the Andes mountain range, you see.
Oh, I see.
Okay, it's close to the equator.
Okay.
All right, because it's extended further out.
But it's not taller than that.
It's the furthest out into space.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Right, because the equator has pushed it out a lot further as well. And so
wouldn't that
you're
make
looking
it
at
the
all the
tallest
mountains
mountain?
around that area sort of thing.
Wouldn't that make it taller than Everest?
Yes, it does.
What?
Yeah, in space. That's right. It goes way further out into space.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. But anyway, you've got the dangers that lurk. Of course, you've got the next 800 years. You've got most dangerous that you could think of. Bennu, 29075 in 2182. And then you've got one in a 2,700 sort of chance or something at the moment, but little butterfly effect, you could see that could shift and move, and that
I won't be around, but if
could
I
be
am,
quite radical.
I won't want to be around, I'll tell you that.
But on the, it really is, when you look at how many points have been north, it's an excellent description really of immediately what would have been after a strike. And it could be calculated actually because the Earth used to be 8 times smaller than it is. And so continents were all together, as you point out. And we've got that, in our past programs and things that you could tune into. But it's a technological advancement that was for sure 3,500 years ago or more, when the pyramids were rebuilt there after the flood, by the people who already had built the Sun Pyramid and these things. And long before this, like you go back quite a way, and you've got civilizations that have existed, and you've got 7 continents that are sunk, but we'll have time to be able to talk about some of these things, because basically, like you said, we should have a program just to do with what you don't know.
I mean, that program would take years just to finish one episode.
But like, what would be interesting to you?
I'll tell you what's interesting, and we're going to do, maybe this will be our next episode, lost technologies. Well, like for instance, we found cuts that were absolutely cut by laser, and that those cuts are as thin as a nanometer, in fact. And so you can't see where the cut is made. You have to press it out and then it will come out, but otherwise you can't see that, you see. So how could anybody do something that's like that? But we can't do it today, can
Yes, we can, of course.
Okay.
I just
what
shared
about,
with you.
How old was this?
It's sort of more precision cutting things on benches and things, which is more
using
magnetic.
How old was that cut that you witnessed or saw?
When Cleopatra's son and Alexander Helios came, there were 1,500, 150,000 people. There was 150,000 people that fitted into the cave more, and they dug a lot and they took time. But who's to know that some part of it was already done in the Grand Canyon? But it's storage of things which is massive. You see, and of a time past and things, and that
they don't want us to know about.
I'm just talking that there's things that you could say that because it's a great conformity. It's a reason that you haven't learned about an asteroid, or that, for instance, like, because it doesn't fit into the picture. What if I found soft tissue in dinosaurs?
Well, I'm sure if soft tissue in dinosaurs have been found, then I'm sure they're testing it, checking it, and trying to regrow it.
Yeah, but why would you see that a researcher who researched it got pounded by the court, and but not the court, the university, and then that caused pounding more in the court because the person lost their job?
Would that be obscuring our past inaction?
Well, you might have released something and they didn't have time to respond, and you just released it and all sorts of things. I don't know. But look, somebody could have got.
Reasons.
But why would you want to, sack a professor who was looking at soft tissue in dinosaur?
He's not following your narrative.
That's not my narrative. Is that your narrative?
Not your narrative.
No, but I mean,
well, their
how do we
narrative.
know that, you see, because it's
their
sort of like,
narrative.
well, yeah, there is, it's true, okay, that is. You could ask me and I could probably determine where that came from a bit.
Sure.
But would you imagine that if somebody had like knowledge of Genghis Khan, for instance?
Which they do, they're out there in the knowledge.
Well, people could have knowledge of the actual true story more of Genghis Khan.
We don't know where he's
What about
buried.
Buddha?
There's a lot about Buddha.
Yeah, no. Yes, because Genghis Khan, installed the first Buddha. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, about 8,500 years ago or something.
Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Installed the first Buddha.
Yeah, of course.
Well, there's another unexplained, just explained.
No, well, you could have a clerical form of government or a civic form, and you just chose to have a clerical form for that area. Yeah.
The clerical form, do you mean like a religious form?
Yes, of course.
Okay, because it could also mean a paper
form. It's going to mean a submission to authority for the sake of certainty possible, but not because it could be under common law. Do you think common law was back in Caesar's time?
Hell no.
Yes, it was, because they lost against King Jubba and his father, you see. Yeah. That was when King Jubba met Cleopatra. Okay. And then they had a child, Jubba II.
Sounds like we need to make a movie about that one, love story.
Well, Caesar was really upset because King Jubba was like quite handsome and swooing everything, and won the court case for his dad, who was King Hempsel, you see.
Oh, Hempsel and Gretel.
He was into hemp sales. They were all into hemp sales. Right. His brother was like adherbal, meaning, you add herbs to your list. And they were all having names like that. But the king would be called Happy, for instance. You go back into the past. Our Noah was not Noah. It was really
called...
Well,
they didn't Noah right then, but everybody knows.
The name was Utnapishtim. And it was Utna, meaning great one, who ships tin. And they came to Crete, you see. And they were Minoan more in the time, because why? Well, they were a minor minority, and that's where most of the people were, and it was beautiful where livingness was. And these people were a minor minority and shifted all around the world. Why? Yeah. Well, because they had boats.
The Minoans, they really lived it up back then. They had some really nice places and stuff.
Yes, but you see, these are just a remnant of a republic.
You know what I didn't notice,
back then?
I didn't notice any furniture. None.
Well, some things would just get burned up, other things used to know, but people didn't have much furniture, actually. Did you know it was essential?
Furniture?
No, it was essentialism, but it wasn't. It was actually
really
telling
me that
Impressionism. No, they were going through a style of art called Impressionism.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
and
impressed.
it's the style we're going through right now.
I'm impressed.
It is. It's the style we have right now. Okay, but there's different styles in art form at the moment, and that is impressionism now. You could tell like what is going to be a better color, what's not. You know, what's selling, what's not. What are things which are selling as good art?
Okay. Somebody just paid $6.2 million for a banana duct tape to a canvas.
Always there's things which is original,
okay,
but
they ate the banana.
it's sort of like that somewhat because art can be, but like it's a pastel color. It's not bright, bold too much. It doesn't like most art that people are selecting to have in public is more pastel color, not too bold, you know, and more vectorized sorts of art actually, which looks really beautiful. In fact, you know.
Okay, cool.
It's got a lot of design that's gone into it and sort of computerized more.
Well, yeah, I mean, pretty soon the robots will be making all our art for us. Boom, 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 boom. And with that, that's all we got for today, folks. I hope you had a good time. And it's a subject we'll continue. I'm thinking our next show, what do you think? I'm thinking lost technology. I think we should do that one next.
Oh, well, I think that's quite amazing because you've got a great sophistication of people of the past, and if you're in the great conformity, are you
say that again?
Well, we might not have heard of these things because that's not been part of the conformity.
Well, and here's another thing. You know, I wanted to ask you this earlier. Do we need to quit thinking that microorganisms are dumb?
Everything has a sentience. That sentience is set by its environment, and so, you know, by its environment something could sense how long could it live relative, and now it organizes itself around that, matter of fact, and this is a sentience, matter of fact it is. It sort of is a condition that the cell decides, and it's sort of a condition between T4 and T8 cells, you know, and that's a ratio of things that relate to a specific toxin. This is sort of really the immunology of the future because you use microfluorescence and various things that are ways to be able to look and to see what's going on there. But it's obvious that if you've got a structure that's valid and you've got a context which is valid and you also have other experts, you've really got a great form of validity, especially when you could explain something to people like how could mammoths have just died instantly with buttercups in their mouth.
Wow. Leave us with something to think about.
We live what we think and think what we live next.
And guess what? Gut your mind and mind your gut. Oh, and who's that guy that put the dome around the planet?
Pope
Boney?
Pope Boney. I don't know if we got that recorded. I'm not sure.
Okay, Pope Boney.
We had a pool pump come on, and that was a bit of noise
right.
in between
and he put
everything.
A dome, but he put a dome around the Earth.
Yes, he did.
All right, look
on
it
paper,
up. There's your homework. Take us out, Dr. Chubb.